Lieutenant Maya Cole stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the polished floor of Galactic Trade Station Nexus 7. The station was massive and beautiful, built from metals that shimmered like liquid silver under the artificial lights. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds walked through its wide corridors, speaking in languages that her translator struggled to keep up with. Maya was here as Earth's military for the annual security summit. It was a great honor for someone her age, and she knew that Admiral had chosen her for a reason. She just did not know what that reason was yet. The armor she wore was the Mark IV combat suit. It was 40 years old, heavy, and covered in scratches from decades of use. The chest plate was thick and the helmet was round and simple. The joints made soft clicking sounds when she moved. By galactic standards, it was a museum piece. Admiral had ordered her to wear this specific suit. When Maya had asked why, the Admiral had simply said that some situations require old solutions. Maya had not understood, but she had followed orders. The welcome ceremony took place in a grand hall with ceilings so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Representatives from 12 spacefaring civilizations gathered in a wide circle. Maya took her place among them and tried to look confident. The hosts were the tall beings made of living crystal. Their bodies caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. They were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced weapons technology. Their leader at this summit was Commander, a towering figure whose crystalline face showed no warmth. Walked slowly around the circle, greeting each delegation. When he reached Maya, he stopped and looked at her armor. His body made a sound like glass scraping against glass. Maya's translator told her it was laughter. "The humans send a child and a relic," said. His voice was sharp and cold. "Is this meant as a joke, or does your species truly have nothing better?" Maya kept her face calm. "The Mark IV has served humanity well for 4 decades, Commander. I trust it completely." Made the scraping sound again and moved on. The mockery did not stop there. The delegation came next, creatures with hard shells and many limbs. They clicked their mandibles together when they saw Maya's armor. The sound was fast and rhythmic, and she knew it meant amusement. "Human equipment is always so crude," said Hive Speaker, the leader. "You build with metal and circuits like primitives. Our technology left such methods behind 1,000 years ago." Maya nodded politely and said nothing. There were fluid-bodied beings who could change their shape at will. Their representative flowed around Maya in a circle, examining her armor from every angle. This body rippled with patterns that her translator identified as mockery. "So heavy," they said, "so slow. How do humans survive in combat wearing such burdens?" "We manage," Maya said. Even they, who were usually the most diplomatic species in known space, whispered among themselves as they looked at her. They were small furry beings with large eyes and gentle voices. Maya had always liked them, but today they seemed embarrassed on her behalf. Maya stood through all of it without complaint. She had been trained to handle pressure, and words could not hurt her. She focused instead on observing the other delegates. Every single one of them carried weapons. This was supposed to be a diplomatic gathering, a place for peaceful negotiation. Yet every delegate wore energy shields and carried sidearms. They had rifles that could cut through starship hulls. They had sonic disruptors that could turn internal organs to liquid. They carried their weapons inside their own bodies, ready to be formed and used at any moment. Maya understood why. The summit had been called because tensions were rising across the galaxy. 3 border conflicts had erupted in the past cycle. Trade routes were being blocked. Ships were being attacked. Everyone was afraid, and afraid beings carried weapons. Her own armor had no visible weapons. The Mark IV was designed for defense, not attack. It had thick plating and basic sensors, nothing more. Or at least, nothing more that she knew about. After the welcome ceremony, Maya found a quiet corner and contacted Admiral through her helmet's communication system. The Admiral's face appeared on her visor display. "How is it going?" asked. "They think I am a joke," Maya said. "The armor is not helping." Smiled. It was a knowing smile that made Maya feel like she was missing something important. "Let them laugh," the Admiral said. "Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have." "With respect, Admiral, I do not understand why you sent me here with 40-year-old equipment. I could have worn the Mark VII. It has energy shields and integrated weapons. I would have earned their respect." Shook her head. "Respect based on firepower is not really respect, Lieutenant. It is fear wearing a polite mask. The Mark IV was chosen for a specific reason." "What reason?" The Admiral paused. "The Mark IV carries certain modifications from its original service. Classified modifications. I cannot tell you what they are because you might behave differently if you knew. But if things go wrong at that summit, if violence seems unavoidable, I want you to activate Protocol 7. Maya searched her armor system menu. She found Protocol 7 listed among the emergency functions. There was no description of what it did. "What will it do?" she asked. "It will give everyone a chance to make better choices," said. "That is all I can tell you. Trust the armor, Lieutenant. Trust the people who built it." The communication ended. Maya stood alone in the corner, surrounded by aliens who thought she was weak and foolish. Her armor hummed quietly, keeping secrets that even she did not know. She walked back toward the main hall where the first negotiation session would begin. A small diplomat approached her on the way. They had soft fur and eyes that seemed too large for her face. "I am Specialist," they said. "May I walk with you?" Maya nodded, and they walked together. "I must apologize for my colleagues," said. "They were unkind about your equipment. I found their behavior embarrassing." "It does not bother me," Maya said. Looked at the Mark IV with curiosity rather than mockery. "Our archives contain records from first contact with humanity. Your early technology fascinated our scientists. You built everything with multiple backups, redundant systems for every function. Other species thought it was wasteful, but our researchers saw wisdom in it." Maya looked at the small alien with new interest. "Wisdom in redundancy." "Yes, your species planned for failure. You assumed things would go wrong and built accordingly. Other species build for success and are surprised when things break." Paused. "I think there is something your people understand that others have forgotten." Before Maya could respond, shouting erupted from the main hall. The first session had begun, and already something was wrong. Maya hurried forward, following close behind. The galaxy was on edge, and the summit that was supposed to bring peace felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark. She did not know it yet, but she was wearing the only thing that could stop the explosion. The second day of the summit began with accusations. Maya stood at the edge of the Great Hall and watched as the galaxy's most powerful civilizations shouted at each other like angry children. Commander's crystalline body flashed with red light as he spoke. This was a sign of anger, and the color was deep and dangerous. "They have violated our territorial agreements 17 times in the past cycle," said. His voice echoed through the hall like breaking ice. "They have sent mining ships into our sectors. They have harvested resources that belong to us by treaty." Hive Speaker rose from his seat. The leader's many limbs clicked against each other in a pattern that meant fury. "Lies," said. "They are the violators. Your mining operations have contaminated the asteroid fields in shared space. Our colonies can no longer harvest clean ore because your poison spreads everywhere." The representative flowed up from their seat and took a shape that looked aggressive. "Both of you have damaged trade vessels. We demand reparations from the and the 50 ships lost, 12,000 lives gone. Someone must pay." The shouting grew louder. Other delegates joined in, adding their own complaints and accusations. They tried to call for calm, but their gentle voices were lost in the noise. Maya recorded everything through her helmet's sensors. The Mark IV might be old, but its recording system still worked perfectly. She would send all of this to Admiral later. After 3 hours of argument, the summit moderator called for a recess. The delegates scattered to different parts of the station, retreating to their quarters or finding quiet spaces to contact their home governments. Maya found a viewing lounge with windows that looked out into deep space. Stars filled the darkness like scattered diamonds. She stood alone and tried to process what she had witnessed. The galaxy was not just tense, it was broken. These species had centuries of history together, yet they could not spend 3 hours in the same room without screaming at each other. How could anyone expect peace from this? Footsteps approached. Maya turned and saw Specialist entering the lounge. "May I join you?" they asked. Maya nodded and came to stand beside her at the window. "That was difficult to watch," said. "Yes, does it always go this way?" His ears drooped, a sign of sadness in her species. "It has grown worse over the years. When my grandmother was young, the summits were places of genuine cooperation. Now they are just places where we perform anger for our governments back home." Maya looked at the small alien. "You seem different from the others. You do not seem interested in fighting." "They are a peaceful species. We have no military, only defensive systems. We survive by being useful to everyone and threatening to no one." Paused. "But being peaceful in a galaxy full of warriors is not easy. We must be careful with every word, every action." "That sounds exhausting." "It is, but the alternative is extinction." Looked at Maya's armor with that same curious expression from before. "I have been thinking about what I said yesterday, about your people and redundant systems." "What about it?" "I did some research in our archives last night. The Mark IV combat suit has an interesting history. It was developed during humanity's early expansion period, when your species first encountered alien life." Maya knew the basic history. "We were afraid. We thought aliens might try to destroy us." "Yes, and that fear shaped everything you built. Your ships had triple backup systems. Your weapons had manual overrides in case electronics failed. Your armor was designed to function even if most of its components were damaged." Tilted her head. "Other species found this paranoid. We saw it as wise." "Wise how?" "Because you assumed the worst and prepared for it. Other species assumed the best and were destroyed when things went wrong. They survived our early encounters with hostile aliens because we shared this philosophy with humans. We expected betrayal and built accordingly." Maya felt a strange connection to this small alien. They were both from species that had learned to survive through caution rather than strength. "Can I ask you something personal?" Maya said. "Of course." "Why are you being kind to me? Everyone else sees my armor as a joke. You could mock me like the others and no one would blame you." Was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because I have read the history that others have forgotten. Humanity could have been conquerors. Your species had weapons and technology that could have given you an empire. But you chose cooperation instead. You joined the galactic community as partners, not masters. We did not have a choice. We were outnumbered." "You always have a choice. They were outnumbered when they first reached space. They conquered their neighbors anyway. They were outnumbered. They built weapons that terrified everyone into leaving them alone." Looked at Maya with those large eyes. "Humanity was outnumbered and chose peace. That is not weakness. That is wisdom." An alarm suddenly cut through the air. Maya's helmet display lit up with warnings. Something was happening in the main hall. She ran, her heavy boots pounding against the floor, followed as quickly as her small legs could carry her. When Maya reached the hall, she saw chaos. Commander was standing over a soldier, his crystalline hand gripping the smaller alien's throat. The soldier's weapon lay on the floor nearby. "This spy was planting surveillance devices," shouted. "They have violated every principle of diplomatic immunity." Hive speaker pushed through the crowd. Release my soldier immediately. He was doing nothing wrong. I caught him with my own eyes. Then your eyes lie, as your people always do. The tension in the room was unbearable. Maya could see hands moving toward weapons, fingers touching triggers, safety mechanisms being quietly disabled. She looked around for help, but there was none. The delegation was frozen with fear. They were moving into defensive positions. The other species were backing away, preparing for violence. Maya's armor sensors detected rising energy levels. Someone was powering up a weapon. In seconds, someone would fire, and once that happened, everyone would fire. She thought about Protocol 7. Admiral had said to use it if violence seemed unavoidable. Was this the moment? No, not yet. There was still a chance for words. Maya stepped forward into the space between and both aliens turned to look at her, surprised by the interruption. "Commander," she said, keeping her voice calm and steady, "please release the soldier. Hive speaker, please tell your people to stand down. We can resolve this without blood." Made that scraping laugh again. The human child wants to play peacemaker. How charming. I am not playing anything. I am asking you to think. If you kill that soldier, they will attack. If they attack, they will join them or flee. They will seal themselves in their ships. This summit will end in fire, and the wars that follow will kill billions. For a moment no one moved, then slowly released the soldier. They fell to the floor, gasping. "This changes nothing," said. "They are still guilty." "Then prove it through evidence," Maya said, "not violence." The moment passed. The weapons were not drawn, but Maya knew this was only a delay. The real crisis was still coming. She could feel it in the air like a storm about to break. She just hoped her armor would be ready when it arrived. The third day began with a funeral. The aide who had been injured in yesterday's confrontation had died during the night. The damage to their fluid body had been too severe. The delegation held a brief ceremony in their quarters, and a heavy grief spread through the station. Maya attended the ceremony out of respect. She stood at the back of the room and watched them perform their death rituals. They merged briefly with the body of the deceased, absorbing memories and experiences that would be passed on to future generations. It was beautiful and sad. When it was over, the leader approached Maya. The being's body was darker than before, a sign of mourning in their species. "You tried to prevent this," the leader said. "We remember." "I am sorry I failed," Maya said. "You did not fail, you delayed. Sometimes delay is all we can hope for." They paused. "The summit will continue in 1 hour. I fear what will happen." Maya feared it too. The morning session began in silence. No one made speeches. No one shouted accusations. The death had sobered everyone, at least temporarily. But grief fades and anger does not. By midday, the old tensions had returned. Hive speaker demanded justice for the soldier who had been attacked by. Commander demanded an apology for the spy who had been caught. They demanded that both sides pay for the aide who had died. Maya stood in her corner and watched the situation deteriorate. Her armor's sensors tracked the rising tension, heart rates increasing, body temperatures climbing, pheromone levels spiking, the biological signs of violence approaching. Specialist appeared beside her. They looked frightened. "This is going to be bad," whispered. "My people are preparing to evacuate. We have seen this pattern before. When the shouting reaches a certain point, the shooting follows." "How long do we have?" "Minutes, maybe less." Maya's hand moved to the control panel on her arm. Protocol 7 was there, waiting to be activated. But she still did not know what it would do. Admiral had been so mysterious about its purpose. The breaking point came without warning. A soldier, the same one who had been attacked yesterday, raised his sonic disruptor and fired at Commander. The beam missed the leader by inches, burning a hole in the wall behind him. Whether the shot was intentional or accidental did not matter. The result was the same. Guards drew their weapons. The soldiers drew theirs. They began reshaping their bodies into combat forms, weapons growing from their own flesh. The other delegations scrambled for cover or prepared their own arms. Maya found herself standing in the center of the room. Everyone had moved to the edges, to the doorways, to defensive positions. She was alone in the middle, surrounded by aliens ready to kill each other. Her armor's sensors went wild. 47 active weapons detected, energy levels critical, targeting systems locking onto targets, safety mechanisms disabled across the room. "Everyone stop," Maya shouted. Her voice was lost in the chaos. Raised his rifle. "They have declared war. We will respond in kind." His mandibles clicked with fury. "You attacked us first. Your soldier dies first." "No one needs to die," Maya said, but no one was listening. She saw fingers tightening on triggers. She saw targeting beams painting red dots on chests and heads. She saw the moment arriving, the instant when everything would explode into blood and fire. Admiral's voice echoed in her memory. "If violence seems unavoidable, activate Protocol 7. Maya pressed the control. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her armor began to glow. A soft blue light spread across the Markivi's surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. The light grew brighter, filling the room with an ethereal glow. Every alien stopped and stared. The light was not threatening, but it was strange. It felt wrong somehow, like reality was bending around it. Then the pulse hit. It was not visible, it was not audible, but everyone in the room felt it. A wave of something passed through the hall, touching everything, penetrating everything. And then the weapons died. His rifle made a sad whining sound and went dark. Its targeting system flickered and failed. Its energy cell showed zero charge. He pulled the trigger and nothing happened. The disruptors shut down in the same moment. The soldiers clicked their mandibles in confusion as their weapons became useless metal. The weapons were strangest of all. The biological systems that the aliens had grown from their own bodies simply stopped working. The killing limbs went limp. The poison glands sealed themselves shut. The beings looked at their own flesh with horror and confusion. Every weapon in the room was dead. Energy shields collapsed. Targeting systems crashed. Defense mechanisms froze. Only Maya's armor still functioned. It hummed quietly, the blue light fading back to normal. The Markiv stood unchanged in a room full of disabled technology. "What did you do?" demanded. His voice was a mix of fear and rage. "What is this human trick?" Maya took a deep breath. She was not entirely sure herself. "This is Protocol 7, she said. "My armor just disabled every weapon in this room." Silence, complete and total silence. Hive speaker tried to restart his disruptor. Nothing. He tried again, still nothing. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than yours. You cannot simply turn it off." Maya looked at her armor. The old, scratched, mocked armor that everyone had laughed at. She finally understood why Admiral had sent her here with this specific suit. "I need to tell you something about humanity," Maya said. "Something most species have forgotten." The aliens stared at her. Without their weapons, they had no choice but to listen. "When we first reached space, we were terrified. Every alien species we met was more advanced than us. Better weapons, better ships, better everything. We knew that if any of them decided to destroy us, we could not stop them." She paused, looking around the room at the confused and frightened faces. "So we built this armor, not to win wars, not to conquer. We built it to survive, to level the field when we were outmatched. The Markiv cannot kill you, but it can make sure that no one else kills anyone either." The leader flowed forward. "You have had this technology for 40 years. You could have used it to disable our defenses and invade. You could have conquered every species that mocked you." "Yes," Maya said. "We could have, but that was not the point. We did not want an empire. We wanted a chance to talk, to negotiate, to solve problems without blood. She looked then at the. Right now, none of you can hurt each other. Your weapons are useless. Your shields are down. You are all equally vulnerable. The room was still silent. Maya could see fear in some eyes, confusion in others, and something that might have been the beginning of understanding in a few. So now you have a choice, she said. You can wait for your technology to restart, which will happen eventually. And when it does, you can continue this war and kill each other. Or you can use this time, right now, to actually listen to each other. No one moved, no one spoke. Maya lowered her arms and stepped back. The choice is yours. My armor has done all it can. The rest is up to you. The silence lasted for what felt like hours. In reality, it was only 30 seconds, but those seconds stretched like years. Commander was the first to move. He examined his disabled rifle, turning it over in his crystalline hands. The weapon that had been ready to kill moments ago was now nothing more than dead weight. How long? He asked. His voice was quieter now, stripped of its arrogance. How long until our systems recover? Maya checked her armor's display. Several hours, maybe longer. The pulse targets quantum cores. They need time to reset. You have trapped us here, helpless. No, I have given you time. What you do with it is your decision. Hive Speaker moved forward. Without his weapons, the leader looked smaller somehow, less threatening, more like a being instead of a warrior. Why did your people create this technology? He asked. You said it was for survival, but this is not a defensive weapon. This is something else. Maya nodded. You are right. The humans who designed Protocol 7 were afraid, but they were also wise. They understood something important about violence. What? That violence only seems like a solution when you believe you can win. When both sides think they can win, everyone loses. Maya gestured at the disabled weapons around the room. The Mark IV was not built to help humanity win. It was built to make sure no one could. The leader flowed closer, their bodies still dark with mourning. You are saying that your ancestors deliberately created a weapon that would make their own weapons useless. Yes, because they realized that weapons were not solving problems. They were only creating new ones. Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. Every war humanity ever fought began with both sides believing they were strong enough to win. The Mark IV was designed to remove that belief, to force people to face each other without the comfort of strength. Specialist stepped forward from the delegation. Her large eyes were bright with understanding. This is why your species chose peace when you joined the galactic community, said. Not because you were weak, because you had already learned that strength alone does not save you. Maya nodded. Earth nearly destroyed itself many times before we reached space. Wars over land, wars over resources, wars over ideas. Each time we survived, we built better weapons and told ourselves we would be safe. And each time, the weapons just made the next war worse. She looked around the room. The aliens were listening now. Not mocking, not laughing, just listening. The people who designed this armor lived through the worst of those wars. They saw cities burn to ash. They saw millions die in hours. When they finally reached space and found other intelligent life, they made a choice. They decided that humanity would never again rely on weapons alone to survive. Commander made a sound, not the scraping laugh from before, but something softer, something almost thoughtful. Your people are strange, he said. They have always believed that strength is the only true security. We build better weapons so that our enemies fear to attack us. And has that worked? Maya asked gently. Was silent for a long moment. Then he said, no, it has not. Every weapon we build, our enemies build a counter. Every defense we create, they find a way through. We have been fighting for 200 years and neither side has won. His mandibles clicked in what might have been agreement. The hive has spent generations preparing for war with the. We have sacrificed resources, lives, futures, all for weapons that your armor just turned off with a single pulse. That is the trap, Maya said. The more you invest in weapons, the more you need to use them to justify the investment. The more you use them, the more your enemies invest in their own. It never ends. The leader spoke next. We are a peaceful species by nature. We became warriors because others forced us to defend ourselves. But now I wonder if we made the right choice. Maya felt a strange emotion rising in her chest. She had come to this summit expecting nothing but mockery and failure. Instead, she was watching ancient enemies actually consider the possibility of change. "May I share something?" she asked. "A story from human history." The aliens nodded. There was a time when two human nations had weapons that could destroy the entire world. Not just their enemies, but everything. Every city, every forest, every living thing. They pointed these weapons at each other for decades. "And what happened?" asked. "Nothing. That was the point. Neither side could attack because both knew that an attack would mean total destruction. It was called mutually assured destruction, a horrible name for a horrible situation." His body flickered with color. "How did you escape such a trap?" Slowly, carefully, people on both sides started talking, not leaders at first, scientists, artists, ordinary citizens. They built connections across the divide. They reminded each other that the enemies they feared were also just people. Maya paused, remembering the history lessons from her academy days. Eventually, the leaders followed, not because they wanted peace, but because their people demanded it. The weapons were slowly reduced. The threats became quieter. It took generations, but we survived. The room was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not the tense silence of a fight about to happen, more like the thoughtful silence of people actually considering new ideas. Hive Speaker broke the silence first. "What would you have us do, human? Our conflicts are not simple. They have real grievances against the. They have taken our territory, poisoned our resources, killed our people. And they have done the same to us," added. "These are not imaginary problems." "I know," Maya said. "I am not saying your grievances are not real. I am saying that weapons will not solve them. Every battle you win creates new grievances for the future. Every soldier you kill has family who will demand revenge." She spread her hands. "Right now you cannot fight. Your weapons are dead, so I am asking you to try something different. Tell each other your grievances, not as demands or accusations, just as facts. Let each side hear what the other has suffered." The aliens looked at each other. Years of hatred and fear stood between them. But for the first time, there were no weapons to hide behind. The leader moved first. They flowed to the center of the room, their bodies shifting into a posture that indicated openness and vulnerability. "I will begin," they said, "if it will help." And then, in a room full of enemies who could no longer hurt each other, something remarkable began to happen. They started to talk. The talking lasted for hours, then it lasted for days. Without weapons to threaten each other, the delegates had no choice but to use words. And words, Maya discovered, could be just as powerful as any rifle or disruptor. They went first. They spoke about their trade routes that had been disrupted by expansion. They described the colonies that had been cut off from supplies, the families that had starved, the children who had never known peace. Their fluid bodies rippled with pain as they shared these memories. Commander listened. At first his crystalline body flashed with defensive colors, ready to argue every point. But as the stories continued, the colors faded to something softer, something almost like regret. When the finished spoke, he described the perspective, the asteroid fields they considered sacred, the mining rights they believed were theirs by ancient treaty. He spoke of ships destroyed by patrols, of crystalline bodies shattered in the cold of space. Hive Speaker was next. The leader described generations of his species living in fear of expansion. He spoke of territory lost, hives destroyed, queens killed in raids that the called defensive operations. His mandibles clicked with grief as he named the dead. Maya stood in her corner and watched history being made. These species had been enemies for centuries. They had fought wars that killed billions. And now, disarmed and vulnerable, they were finally hearing each other. It was not easy. There were moments when old anger flared and voices rose. There were accusations that seemed impossible to answer. There were wounds so deep that no words could heal them. But the talking continued, because there was nothing else to do. Specialist joined Maya at one point. The small was trembling with emotion. "I have never seen anything like this," whispered. "In all our history, no one has ever forced the great powers to simply talk." "My armor did not force anything," Maya said. "It just removed the option of violence. The choice to talk was theirs. But they would never have made that choice if violence was still possible." Maya nodded. "That is what the designers understood. As long as people can fight, they will. Not because they want to, but because fighting feels easier than talking. You take away the easy option, and suddenly the hard option does not seem so impossible." On the third day, something shifted. The accusations became quieter. The stories became more personal. The delegates stopped speaking as representatives of their species and started speaking as individuals. Admitted that he had lost family in the wars. A sibling, shattered by a sonic weapon. He had spent his life seeking revenge, building his career around hatred of the hive. Revealed that his hive mother had been killed by forces. He had been raised on stories of crystalline monsters who wanted to exterminate his kind. He had never questioned those stories until now. The leader shared memories from the deceased aide. Before dying, the aide had merged their experiences with the leader. And those experiences included a childhood dream of peace, a hope that someday the species of the galaxy would stop killing each other. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. She had not expected this. She had come to the summit expecting failure, expecting her outdated armor to be mocked while ancient enemies continued their march toward war. Instead, she was watching enemies become something else. Not friends, not yet, but perhaps something that could grow into friendship given enough time. On the fifth day, the weapons began to recover. Energy cells slowly recharged. Targeting systems rebooted. The technological advantage that had defined galactic politics for centuries started to return. The delegates noticed. Maya saw their hands drift toward their weapons, old habits taking hold. The fragile peace they had built was about to shatter. She stepped forward one last time. "Your weapons are coming back," she said. "Soon you will have the power to hurt each other again. Before that happens, I want to ask you something." The aliens looked at her. "These past 5 days, you have talked more than you have in centuries. You have heard things you never knew. You have shared things you never thought you would share. Has any of it meant anything? Or will you pick up your weapons and continue as if none of this happened?" Commander looked at his rifle. It was nearly functional again. He could feel the energy building in its core. "I have been a soldier all my life," he said slowly. "I was taught that peace is weakness and war is strength, that the must always dominate or be dominated." He set the rifle on the ground. "I am tired of that teaching. I do not want to die fighting enemies I now understand were not so different from me." Hive Speaker watched the commander disarm. His own disruptors were also recovering. He could feel them humming against his carapace. "The Hive has always said that the must be strong or be destroyed. We have sacrificed so much for strength, our resources, our children, our future." Removed his disruptors and placed them beside his rifle. "Perhaps it is time to try something else." One by one, the other delegates followed. Weapons were placed on the ground. Energy shields were deactivated. The room that had been ready for war became something different, a place of possibility instead of violence. The delegation wept openly. In their entire history, they had never seen the great powers voluntarily disarm. "What happens now?" asked Maya. Maya took off her helmet and held it under her arm. Her face was young and tired and hopeful. "Now the real work begins. Treaties need to be written. Borders need to be redrawn. Trust needs to be built. It will take years, maybe generations. And there will be setbacks. People will get angry. Old hatreds will resurface." She looked at the delegates who were now talking quietly in small groups and standing side by side and sharing memories of lost loved ones. "But it is possible. My species proved that. We were killing each other for thousands of years before we learned to stop. If humanity can change, so can you." Later, as Maya prepared to return to Earth, Specialist came to say goodbye. "Your armor was not outdated at all," said. "It was the most advanced technology in that room." Maya smiled. "No, the technology was not the important part. The important part was what it made possible, a chance to talk, a moment without violence. That is all any peace really needs, just a moment to begin." Reached out and touched the Markivi's surface. "Will you tell your admiral what happened here?" "I will, and I will tell her that she was right. Some situations really do require old solutions." Maya walked to her shuttle, her heavy boots clicking against the floor. The armor she wore was 40 years old, scratched and dented and mocked by every species she had met. But it had done something that no amount of firepower ever could. It had stopped a war, not by winning it but by making winning impossible. As her shuttle lifted off from Nexus 7, Maya looked back at the station where history had changed. The galaxy still faced a long road toward peace. There would be failures and setbacks and moments when war seemed inevitable again. But for now, in this moment, the shooting had stopped, and that was enough. That was everything.